Divya, we are on live. You can start.
So, a very good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome. So, I'm Divya, Zoo Education Officer. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all who joined in today's webinar session on the occasion of 68th Wildlife Week celebration from October 2nd to 8th, 2022.
Divya, 1 second, 1 second.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I should start from starting.
Yes.
Okay. So, good afternoon and a warm welcome to everyone. I'm Divya, Zoo Education Officer. Gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all joined in today's webinar session as we celebrate 68 Wildlife Week celebration from October 2nd to 8th, 2022 on theme recovering the key species for ecosystem restoration. Joined us today to speak on topic The Forgotten Kingdom, Conserving the Longest Venomous Snake in the World is Sri Murthy Kantimahanti, founder of Eastern Ghats Wildlife Society. A brief introduction. Murthy Kantimahanti has been working in Eastern Ghats landscape of South India with an aim to protect the lesser known wildlife of the region through local community engagement for the past 12 years. His current conservation efforts focuses on developing and implementing effective threat reduction programs for conservation of threatened snake populations, including the iconic king cobra in north coastal Andhra Pradesh region. He is the international conservation partner of Haaouston Zoo, USA, and an associate scientist of Global Wildlife Conservation, member of IUCN's World Commission of Protected Areas, connecting conservation specialist group. He has around 20 scientific and semi-scientific publications highlighting the conservation efforts in the Eastern Ghats. He will speak us today on Forgotten Kingdom, conserving the longest venomous snake in the world. Over to you, sir. Please begin your talk.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am trying to present my screen. Okay. Now, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, 1 minute, 1 minute. It's like a blank.
Now,
No, sir, it is not visible.
just a minute. Um, okay. So what I'll do now? Now
Uh, no, sir.
it's showing I'm presenting to everyone. Still
No.
cannot see it.
Yeah, no, sir. Maybe it takes you to time to.
Yeah. Just wait. Maybe
Yes.
my connection is not so fast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you see it now?
No, sir.
Okay.
So once close it and again you just open it, sir.
Let me try again.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Entire screen. Now, how about now? Now?
Yes, sir, it is visible now.
Okay. All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. First off, I would like to thank Indira Gandhi Zoological Park and Andhra Pradesh Forest Department for giving me this opportunity. Um and On the eve of National Wildlife Week, I'm honored to speak about some of the lesser known threatened snake species like king cobra in a largely unexplored, neglected landscape like the Eastern Ghats, which is why we have written it's truly a forgotten kingdom for the king cobras. Um, for those who are not aware, Eastern Ghats hill ranges and associated habitat types, they are spread across 5 states uh, along the east coast of India. And king cobras. Now, many people haven't heard of king cobras in Eastern Ghats. People still ask me about the the fact. I mean, is it really true that we have king cobras? So it's truly many people still are on this fact finding mission if king cobras are really there in Eastern Ghats. But yes, they are. Uh, Now, these are actually the longest venomous snakes in the world. They have been known from Western Ghats, Northeast India, Andamans, and also the Trans Himalayan forest areas like Nepal, Uttarakhand as well. Um, but from the Eastern Ghats, we haven't had any records lately for the past 10, 15 years. Despite its size, king cobras are shy. They are very afraid of humans. It's a timid snake. Uh, the textbook says they are found in evergreen mixed forest types, but due to various factors that we still don't know for sure, they are also found in human dominated, disturbed, fragmented landscapes as well, especially in the Eastern Ghats. So, uh, but they are predominantly they feed on other snakes. 80% of their diet is other venomous and non-venomous snakes. But we have heard of king cobras chasing down monitor lizards as well as uh, domestic fowl in some cases, but very rare. Now, they are also categorized as vulnerable by the IUCN. The listing can be little bit tricky because the local resident populations in a specific area or a locality have different levels of threats. For example, king cobras in Agumbe may not have the level of threat that they have in the Eastern Ghats, but the IUCN is a global entity and it classifies the species entirely throughout its range. So generally speaking, they're vulnerable, but in some areas they are more threatened. Uh, Protected also under Indian Wildlife Act of 1972. Some of the earliest records with authentic photographic evidence, what we say as evidence-based information of Eastern Ghats king cobras, is coming from Srikakulam. This was way back in 2010 and 12, probably uh, more than 10 years ago. Uh, until then, some forest officials have spotted it in the wild in Vijayanagaram in Saluru range, and we hear people and local talking about king cobras that they have spotted it, but we really haven't had any evidence, a photograph or a roadkill until then. This is about our society. It's a non-profit, a grassroots level non-profit. We believe in conservation-oriented research, institutional capacity building, and sustainable development. So, how we do our projects it's actually based on entirely conservation action planning, because the planning is aimed at threat reduction to imperiled wildlife, the wildlife which is threatened. Some species like the king cobra, they prefer a certain type of habitat, and they are threatened by various factors, especially human persecution, habitat fragmentation. We'll talk about it later. So threats come in different categories. One is species specific threats which are very specific to a species. uh, Second is habitat specific threats. These are like destruction of habitat modification and things like that. So threat reduction programs are slowly beginning to sort of take over the conservation paradigm, because people now, we know that we are at the edge of a global biodiversity loss. We have been losing species at a remarkable rate, and people are aware of it. The scientists are also ringing the bells. And so now we have to kind of protect the species by addressing the threats. So any research program, anything, any study that has direct implications to species threat reduction programs is very important. And so we believe in that kind of a problem based approach. You have a conflict, you have an issue, uh, then that's how you actually approach and address the issue. So these are like some of the rescues we did. And then there is we always work with the local wildlife authorities, because law enforcement agencies are, they're already equipped, they have the legal authority, and you just have to kind of build the capacity where it is needed to sort of enhance the impact of conservation. Um, as I said, the main threats to king cobras in the Eastern Ghats is indiscriminate killing due to perceptive fear. Now, talking about indiscriminate killings, all these killings are just happening there as we speak. People are spotting king cobras and they're killing it, chasing down, cornering them, killing them. It's not that the king cobras are actually biting back or they're trying to defend themselves. There's nothing happening over there. It's only one-sided affair. People spot it, they kill it. It doesn't have to enter your house, it doesn't have to enter your backyard. It only has to catch your attention. So that was the scenario. It still is in many areas, but in the project areas where we are working in Vishakhapatnam, and now, of course, Anakapalli, this was the scenario 5 to 6 years ago. We have also had roadkills. We are still having roadkills, but we don't know, we don't have quantifiable data to sort of assess the threat, whether roadkill is really a big threat to species survival in this region. But we do have sporadic records of roadkills, especially hatchlings. When they hatch from the nest, they radiate in all directions, and that's when they try to disperse and cross roads, cross paths with humans, and they usually get run over or just killed on site. So hatchlings, and sometimes during breeding season, the adults as well. And we also don't know if there is any disease that playing its part. It's only a potential threat because we don't have evidence-based information to confirm it. Habitat to loss of habitat. These are one of the main threats to habitat is loss of habitat. As we know, this is not just for king cobra, but it entails the whole conservation world, and to all the species, in fact, a loss of habitat. And here is one interesting thing that not many people are aware of, especially for a layman. It looks all green, but what you see in the background is the reserve forest, the protected area, and then adjoining human-dominated landscape with plantations and croplands and agricultural landscapes. Now, this is where we don't have in Eastern Ghats, especially, the habitat is quite fragmented. We have these human-dominated, unprotected landscapes interspersed like a mosaic between the the protected patches. And so the animals they don't have a corridor, a contiguous patch where they can disperse, move around, and the population can sustain. So this is one of the major threats we have, is reduced habitat quality because of agricultural intensification, and also poor land use management. Anybody can say it's quite green and beautiful, but you can see that it's due to the shifting cultivation and exotic species plantations. The whole landscape has changed. The natural vegetation structure is lost. um, so when we do king cobra rescues, it's like a lost option for us, because rescuing a large venomous snake from where it was found is not easy, especially a king cobra. King cobras in the Eastern Ghats, well, they appear to be a bit more aggressive. Given the fact that people persecute them, they probably would have evolved this aggressive behavior over hundreds of years as a self defense um, towards people. Now, and so the thing is, how do you inspire these communities to take wildlife saving actions? It all begins with helping them in the first hand, to show solutions for human snake conflict. We are also talking about human snake conflict here, which is quite serious. In a place like India, around 58,000 people die each year from snake bites. However, these snake bites are not from king cobra. These are from other venomous species like common cobra, spectacled cobra, Russell's viper, saw-scaled viper, and common crate. King cobras, on the other hand, are beneficial because they feed on other snake populations, and they help control the populations of other venomous as well as non-venomous snakes in an area. So if there are king cobras in an area, it means that the population density, it's densely populated with other snake species as well. Now, how do you get this message to people who are illiterates, not well educated, people who don't know anything about wildlife laws, whatever? So it's a pretty tricky task for us. In the beginning, nobody would listen to us, uh, but then it took years and years of outreach and strategic communication, as well as working at the grassroots level, showing them solutions, like when they see a snake, what to do, whom to call, instead of killing it. So many king cobras, especially in Eastern Ghats, just like their Western Ghats cousins, they try to escape. Given the first chance, they always try to escape. Uh, but some do fight back. Some males are very aggressive, and they also fight back. We do have a couple of rescuers in Odisha who do rescues, not exactly on a regular basis, but from time to time. So this is something that we really have to be very careful about, because rescuing a king cobra, you can see that the people right behind us in this photograph, we have a barrier, a perimeter. You secure a perimeter first, so people do not enter the area where you're working with the snake, trying to bag it. And it's extremely important that crowd management. This is where forest department people always help us. They come along with us, and they make sure that the crowd lets us do our work, because sometimes they become unruly, and even though you just yell at them, they wouldn't listen. The curiosity takes over. um, Eastern Ghats king cobras, what we feel is not so easy to get into a pipe and bag, although they can be pursued constantly by sort of allowing them to enter into the pipe, but which is equally stressful, because the more time you're with the snake, the more stressful the snake is. So the earlier you bag the snake, the better and safer for everyone. Um, Over the years, we developed this technique, especially given the fact that crowd or around the snake, there's always movement around the snake, and snakes easily get noticed. They notice the movement, they get disturbed, and people are moving all around the snake every time. Like, it doesn't have a blind spot where it can escape or use the pipe as an escape route. Now, this technique is it's not something new. It's been used worldwide, all over the world, also used in the Western Ghats. Still, they are doing it in some cases. It's a bagger hook with a bagger, snake bagger. So that helps the snake to become blindfolded for a minute, for a few seconds, and that gives us the time to bag the snake entirely inside the bag. But this needs a lot of coordination, and the person who is holding the snake's tail and the person who is holding the bagger hook needs to be very, very well coordinated and alert all the time, because one wrong move, it's risky, but it's still, the snake can be bagged quickly. So you need training, both two persons, and you need two people to rescue a large king cobra using a bagger technique. Over the years also, we have been receiving free ranging king cobra photos. People have been sending us photos of king cobras being spotted somewhere out in the field, in the farmland, everywhere, like near their house, outside a village, maybe. So these snakes would have been killed otherwise. But now they are clicking pictures. Some of them also have good cameras, so they give us pictures with their mobile phones and cameras. They send us these free-ranging king cobra photographs, which is great. We almost receive 1 or 2 calls in a week, but we don't attend. In many cases, the king cobra will escape given a chance and opportunity. All you've got to do is just be patient, and the snake will eventually leave, because it does notice people around, and it will always try to escape. So once or twice in a month, we do rescue a king cobra when the situation gets completely out of control and people are surrounded. So, the king cobra is surrounded by people, and people are surrounded by more people, because in Eastern Ghats, you have these dozens and dozens of people coming in. If there is something called a king cobra, a huge snake over 10 foot long, people would like to see it. And so from the surrounding villages, you have huge crowd coming in. So at that time, it's almost impossible to let the snake go. And then that's when we have a discussion with the local forest department officials and take a call and rescue the snake. King cobras are good swimmers as well. As I said, they are the longest venomous snake in the world, and they are very good swimmers. They usually prefer, what we believe is, they're using the waterways, irrigation canals, streams, natural mountain streams that pass through these villages to travel. Because in many cases where we rescued king cobra, there has always been a water source nearby, not just like a small stagnant patch of water or a water pool, but it's actually a stream coming from somewhere else. It could be a canal, it could be just a natural stream, whatever. So they might be using, and they're very good, given the fact that they're very good swimmers, they might be using these waterways to travel across human dominated landscapes, and then they find something to eat, and that's when accident happens. So we are talking about behavior change, because what exactly motivates these villagers to stop killing and then call us instead, or just let it go? So behavior change campaigns involve a lot of outreach initiatives. It also involves a lot of working personally with these people, gaining their trust. The trust building is really important, and we involve them in any process. For instance, if we do a program an awareness program or a conservation program, and we plan in and around a village, we involve the locals as part of it. We allow them to talk, so they will be part of the decision making process as well. So what we say as shared problem approach. Like, it's not just your problem, it's also our problem. We want the snakes to live, you want to get rid of the snake. So we have a problem, a common problem that we can share, and then let's find a solution. So kind of an approach that really helped us when dealing with these communities. So as a result of the last 5-6 years work, we have been kind of observing some increase in tolerance, especially among certain areas where we have rescued more king cobras than others. People are showing increased tolerance and also understanding of the snake. Uh, that's because they also realize that these snakes rarely bite, and there hasn't been any case of a king cobra death in the region. So all these things are kicking in slowly. The attitude is changing, especially the elder generation, the old people in the community who are elderly, 60 plus years. They have also a kind of cultural acquaintance with snakes, because they usually don't molest snakes. They understand better. They know that rat snakes are non-venomous and they are good, and king cobras are rare. But nowadays, in the sense, like the last couple of decades, they are coming down hills and entering into human habitations, probably climate change or whatever. I mean, we just don't know the exact reason. um, so that's where we work with these local communities, especially tribals, and that's actually our team from a tribal hamlet, who have been very helpful and cooperative in protecting a king cobra nesting habitat, in fact, that I will talk about. um, so these information billboards are everywhere, but we'll have to get new ones in many of the new divisions that have been formed as part of reorganization. And these two are at the Chodavaram range office, standing in front of the billboard. So this has nothing, no kind of jargon or any kind of factual information dumping in interesting facts, because nobody actually reads this. Uh, the main purpose of these billboards is to tell people about king cobras. They are legally protected, they are very timid. Okay, and then you see a king cobra, what happens next? You just call us. So after working with these communities for years, we learned that they just need a solution first. You show them, and then when you start working with them, they will then take your science into them, into their brains. So these billboards are very specific, action oriented, with specific messages about king cobras, which really worked out. We not only give these, we not only have these billboards erected, but we also have handouts, the same design, and we also go out and fix these everywhere we can with permission from the local communities, so everybody can have access to these rescue call numbers. And this is one documentary that we have developed 4-5 years ago, maybe, called Living with the King. It simply shows how ARRS, who have been doing incredible work in the Western Ghats, and Madras Crocodile Bank Trust, so how they've been able to work with the communities in Agumbe and protect king cobras there. Because I've heard of rescue calls in Agumbe where people call a rescuer and who might be traveling somewhere, and it will take half a day for him to get back to the scene. But still they would wait, they would lock the door, they would lock the house and sleep somewhere else, in neighbor's house or friend's house, and wait for the rescuer. Now that's the kind of tolerance and behavior change we are aiming at ultimately. Hopefully we'll get there at some point, but that's where Agumbe Rainforest Research Station, who have been our partners, giving us, guiding us, and giving us actually very good inputs, critical inputs throughout the project, have done a tremendous job in the Western Ghats. Our every time, whatever we do with wildlife species, we know that they are legally protected, so we always collaborate with the forest department. Now this I'll tell you what this story is all about. Living with the King is about how Western Ghats communities have learned over the years to live with the king. It's a harmonious coexistence with the king, and how they have adapted. And that's actually, this new behavior is helping them reduce snake bites, is helping king cobras. It's helping everyone, conservationists basically. So that's the kind of, it's just a very good movie. You can just go to YouTube and type these keywords called Living with the King, and you will be able to see this film. This is something that we have developed very recently called A Forgotten Kingdom. This also has some excellent footage. One of our team members called Madhu is a very young, enthusiastic wildlife photographer, videographer, and conservationist. So he took over, like, it took us several months to get the footage from different specimens, but then we were able to put together. The main goal of this film is to show people how king cobras in unprotected landscapes, human dominated landscapes, highly fragmented, can coexist if we give them, all we have to do is just let them live. So these are adaptable snakes. We don't know if this is a separate population from those in the deep forest, or there is regularly. For that, we'll have to do some radio telemetry and movement ecology studies to confirm. But still, these snakes are there. Many people report spotting king cobras at the same time, at the same locality, which means that they have become residents. They have water, they have food, they have shelter. So these animals in human dominated landscapes need to be protected only through community engagement. There's no other way, to be honest. You cannot declare the community areas and villages as protected reserves. So that's the main agenda, the main goal of the film, is to show how these king cobras are thriving in human dominated landscapes of Eastern Ghats in North Andhra region. Especially, it was filmed in Srikakulam and Visakhapatnam. As I said, we do a lot of institutional and local community capacity building. So capacity building is something where you enhance the knowledge, develop skills that are necessary to handle a crisis or a conflict situation. So we have these tools, techniques, and expertise to work with the forest department and other stakeholders on various capacity building programs, especially when it comes to snake rescues, rehabilitation, as well as conservation. So that we have done it in many divisions. In fact, we did one right today in Srikakulam Forest Division. I'm driving down from Srikakulam. We did one program today there for the staff. Now, similarly, we have been also doing, we did in the past, but this was back in 2017. We did quite a few programs at the zoo, the local zoo, which has always been super supportive to our programs, and we stay greatly thankful for that. Now, also the rescue equipment, where is this equipment? Like, once you build the capacity, now people need tools to actually do work or use that skills and knowledge that they have earned. So the tools are also given, and we are also planning to give more tools now to snake rescuers, amateur snake rescuers. We have given quite a few of them in Vizag itself to some snake enthusiasts in the past, of course, the snake keepers in the zoo, and some snake rescuers, local snake rescuers in places like Srikakulam and Vijayanagaram. So various stakeholders, forest, fire, and in some cases even the local police also attend our programs, where we tell them not only about conservation, but we also tell them about dealing with human-snake conflict, snake bite management, and the conflict mitigation strategies, because that's where the forest department is kind of most importantly, it's engaged with. The first ever king cobra conservation workshop was also held. That this was at the zoo park in 2019. This was an exclusive workshop for field forest officers and also amateur snake catchers for conservation of king cobras. I mean, we talked only about king cobras for half a day, where they live, how do they reproduce, why do they come into human habitations, when to rescue, when not to rescue, how to rescue, things like that. It's a lot of, even we also brought out a protocol on king cobra rescue and rehabilitation in consultation with the forest department. So this was one exclusive workshop. The credit should go to the forest department for organizing this on king cobras. So this was at the zoo park back in 2019. Now this is something that's interesting. So this is nothing but a nest, a king cobra nest. Female king cobra is the only snake that builds a nest. Now this is the first incidence where a nest was observed and protected with complete support from local communities. They didn't know that it was a nest, but they have been frequenting the area for moving around from one village to another village. When the female noticed disturbance, it just escaped right next, like into the bamboo, which is right next to the nest. So that's when they told us that they saw a huge snake, a king cobra. They very well know that it was a king cobra because we have rescued a couple of large snakes from the village in the past. So they told us, and it happens to be quite close to the village where people move around and there's a lot of disturbance. So upon suggestions by the famous Romulus Whitaker of Madras Crocodile Bank Trust, we observed the nest until the female king cobra was brooding. Literally, it was resting on it, defending, without eating anything for over 1 month. And when the female king cobra left the nest becomes vulnerable to natural predators like mongoose, and then of course monitor lizards, and even ants in some cases, forest ants. So we had to sort of take his advice and build a small, non-invasive, completely a mosquito net we wrapped around, so that will keep some predators at bay and also gives some protection to the eggs inside. So we also employed a couple of tribal youth to protect the nest, always watch it from a distance and guide people away from the nest. If somebody is moving around, they would say better not to go there because there's a huge snake, so things like that, it really helped. We also, the chief conservator of forest, Vishakhapatnam, supported us a lot. The DFO, Vizag, also supported us a lot because when we consulted them, they were very encouraging and they said, just go ahead. Now, this is it, the result is we have successfully, like in the nest, around 25 different hatchlings, all beautiful, some of them pretty bright, some of them are pretty thin, some of them pretty healthy, of different sizes and colors. These emerged. We have had 25 different hatchlings of king cobras at one single place, and they have emerged in two different phases. And once they're out of the nest, all we had to do was remove the barrier around the nest, and they dispersed exactly where it hatched. And most importantly, the locals agreed to what we have been doing. So we had an arrangement, sort of a discussion with them, that they will not harm the nest, and we will make sure that none of those hatchlings come towards the village. So it really helped. And we also took some data on when the eggs were laid, when they hatched, how long the female was. So this happens to be the first observation in the entire Eastern Ghats region of Andhra. There you go. There's another hatchling. This is actually a rescue. It's around 1 month old. It's not a fresh hatchling. So this happened in Vijayanagaram recently. So it came into a village, and then our local snake rescue went there and rescued it. So that is one. And this is our small field office we set up at Chitikada in Vishakhapatnam. And so these two gentlemen right next to me, beside me, can also handle a king cobra. So they just learned out of experience over a period of time. Uh, so it all boils down to protecting the unprotected. How do you protect those areas which badly need protection, but with no legal backup or support? So that is the main challenge, not for the king cobras, but the biodiversity that thrives in some of these amazing landscapes. Uh, so the challenge about protecting the unprotected, I think it has to be a holistic approach. We are not talking about just king cobras, the kingdom, the snake, and all. King cobras live in a forest area or a biodiversity rich area where there are other species like pangolins, other species like a mouse deer, whatnot. Like there are also other mammals and reptiles and birds existing in these landscapes. So the holistic approach matters a lot. We are not, in our case, yes, we are using the king cobra as a flagship, an ambassador, but the goal is to protect the whole landscape. Habitat protection by multiple stakeholder engagement is the key. Um, and then we are also looking forward for nesting habitat protection, because we really don't know where they are, if there are any potential nesting sites. All we have to do is just identify and give them protection. It could be in a protected area already, it could also be in unprotected area, like the recent incident we had. So it's really important that nesting habitat is protected, because the reproducing individuals need the breeding grounds for any population to stabilize. The breeding grounds are very essential. The breeding habitat for king cobras, uh, as many of you would know, is mostly dense bamboo areas where they can nest using the leaf litter. Uh, so that is one thing that we are looking forward to do, to increase king cobra populations in an effort to do that. Uh, Availability of prey populations, this shouldn't be a problem, in especially in human dominated landscape, given the species like rat snake and common cobras live in many of the farmlands around. So these two aspects are something that we need to really work on. um, this is Rom Whitaker, who visited long ago to Eastern Ghats. They also visited our project site. This is near in Chidikada of Vishakhapatnam district. Of course, that's now Anakapalli. And we also have many partner and supporting organizations across the world, some of the best, who could support us logistically. If we need any equipment or advice or technical support, we are always working with the best. Thank you very much. It's been almost like 45 minutes. So if there are any questions or anything that I can help with clarification, I would like to take it now.
So now we can stop presentation.
Yes.
So thank you, sir, for the most insightful presentation on the longest venomous snake of King Cobra. So we came up to know many information and also the rescues done by your team members. So moving on to the questions asked by our participants from the presentation. So the first question is like, as we know, the king cobra is the only snake that makes its own nest. So how can a snake build a nest, and how is it further protected from the predators, sir?
So this is actually quite a good question, and also quite an interesting one, because for a limbless creature to gather those dry leaves and twigs together is an arduous task. It's, what do you say,
Yes.
very, very, very difficult for a snake. But still, the female does it by coiling around dry leaves repeatedly. And what really sort of uh, took us by surprise is that when all hatchlings emerged, we had to count the shells to know how many have actually gone out. We couldn't count those individuals, they just rapidly dispersed in an instant. And then when we saw the architecture of the nest, it was quite amazing. The nest had multiple layers on top, and there is actually a nest chamber underneath, which is dry and warm. So the snake must have worked really hard for days to gather that amount of leaf litter in different layers to lay eggs. And so the snake does this by coiling around. And so because it's a huge snake, remember, it's not just a small snake. It has its body weight, it's strong snake, and the girth of the snake's body also helps when it tries to gather the leaf litter. So that is one thing. And then once the nest eggs are laid, the females guards the nest by coiling on top of it. On top of it, it wouldn't feed for weeks. We also found two, what do you say, molds, the skin sheddings of king cobra, two different, because it had two heads, a large two heads, and it definitely must have been from the mother king cobra, the female king cobra. So two times, if it actually had skin sheds, it means more, almost 2 months or 1.5 months maybe. So that's about it. Is that what they wanted, or
Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir. So thank you, sir, for clarifying it. So moving on to the second question, what attracts snakes into the yard, and can we identify the snake accurately by its own color, sir?
it's very difficult to identify a snake from its color, because same species may have different color morphs. A species
Yes.
living in the plains, a species living at an altitude, a species living in a colder climate may have different color morphs, but they belong to the same snake species. The best way to identify a snake is to use a field guide and have closer pictures from a safe distance. Use some lens or something to click a picture. And the first question was about why do they enter houses, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So snakes have multiple reasons. One is your house must be providing some sort of a shelter, like a cool place during summer or a warm place during winter. Secondly, they must be having some food. Your house, if it has a lots of rats, which is not common because rats can live anywhere, um, and then if it has lizards, maybe frogs, some kind of a food source that attracts snake. And the third reason could be just an accident. For example, if the snake is passing through one point to another point, and your house or an office or this habitation happens to be right in the middle, it has to pass through. And if somebody spots the snake, it gets disturbed. In fact, some of the king cobra rescues we did, they didn't enter into house accidentally. They were passing through. Somebody sees them, they just press the panic button, shouting, louding, all the chaos. It gets frightened, and then it quickly gets into whatever it can. It could be a
Yes.
house, it could be a bathroom, or whatever. So that's how snakes usually end up in human habitations.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. Sir, in case if the snake is poisonous before you going to catch it, so how is the identification done afterwards, sir?
Usually, if you are trained in snake rescue, you have to learn to identify the venomous from non-venomous. If
Yes.
the snake is venomous, you'll have to use some tools like a snake hook and a bagger to bag it. And if it's non-venomous, depending on the species, the technique sort of slightly differs. For rat snakes, it's best to handle them with your hands. For example, if it's a small snake like a keelback, you can still do that. Striped keelbacks, and again, not all snakes are very gentle and timid. Wolf snakes tend to bite back really nasty. Although it's non-venomous, they can bite back. And there are also checkered keelbacks, one of the most common non-venomous snakes throughout India. They also give a pretty nasty bite, although non-venomous. So, and sometimes if it's a python, a huge one, you'll have to catch the neck. And if there is no other way to bag it inside a bag using pipe, you'll have to catch the neck. So the technique depends on your ability to identify the snake species, the rescue situation, and the equipment you have on hand.
Yes, sir. So one more doubt is in as we know, in many village people they don't have snake bag or any other thing. So what is the alternative way to choose it, sir?
Alternative way to, sorry.
Alternative to choose to rescue a snake, sir.
So if there is no snake bag, there is no snake hook, you should not rescue a snake.
Yes.
Allow it to escape if possible. You just talk to them or ask them to watch it until you get your equipment, or just give it a passage, a safe passage where the snake can escape.
Yes, sir. So this is the last question.
Yeah.
So would you like to share some of the memorable experience like during your snake rescue, sir?
Uh, well, not exactly any. Every rescue is memorable, to be honest.
Yes.
Especially king cobras. When you go out and rescue these large snakes, every experience, every rescue seems different. Like you're constantly learning from each and every rescue. You learn a new thing. Sometimes, now one rescue we had of a king cobra, and that was way back, I think around 2019. So that was one of the most aggressive king cobras we have seen. And so every time the snake was bouncing on me, it was striking at me, it was only trying to defend. It was just trying to say that, hey, look, move away from me. But it would have bitten me. So somehow I feel that king cobras have that uh, sense, or sort of tolerance, that they don't bite readily, but they will bite. I'm not saying that king cobras never bite. They will bite if they are pretty much sort of irritated or disturbed too much. uh, but then yes, every rescue for me, especially a king cobra rescue, is memorable because I cannot sort of delineate one from the other. I learn from each rescue, and not all snakes are different. They have very, very strong personalities and individual temperaments.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing all the information on the snakes, especially on the longest venomous snake of India. So, with this, we conclude the webinar session. So, moving on to out of thanks, I heartily thank our today's speakers, Shri Kantimahanti, founder of Eastern Ghats Wildlife Society, for joining the webinar session. We feel fortunate to have you, sir, and also to listen the work done by you. I thank Dr. Nandini Salaria, IFS, curator of Indira Gandhi Zoological Park, for the continuous support to happen the webinar session successfully. I also thank our participants for joining the webinar session through online. Thank you everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye, sir.